year. It's like, yeah, I want a new one type of thing. So you've got to be aware of those things that you did back then. You used to take her out on dates.
Is romance expensive?
Oh yeah. Look, romance is expensive, but the currency isn't always money.
Zwil, romance is expensive. I wonder if they see life in the tweet. Romance is expensive, but it's not about the currency.
The currency isn't always money. Time is money. Time is very much money. Time is of equal importance. Attention is of equal importance. For you to just be intentional about pleasing your partner.
Sanibonani, igama ubongani kaLuvalo, the founder of Cool Dads Foundation. I would like to welcome you on Men 360, a men lifestyle podcast that would like to look at different aspects in a man's life. Most importantly, how do we learn and learn some of our experiences that make us to contribute in making our society positive or negative. I'm joined today by Ubablinda Yende.
Yes, sir.
A husband, a father, and a relationship expert.
Yes, I'm glad you said those in that order. I love that order. That's a great order.
No, thank you very much for making time. We really appreciate
Always a pleasure.
To avail yourself for us to, at least take a dip in your fountain of wisdom, about relationships.
Such as it is.
Because of relationships in the 21st century seem to be a bit problematic. And I think we'll get to unpack some of the things that men are going through, but most importantly, how relationships are made up and what do they mean for a man, who is finding himself in the 21st century and trying to make sure that they navigate those streets. Probably let's just have a brief background of who Ubabi Yende is, and then we can just then navigate into our topic for today.
Yeah. I always battle with that question because, but I think, as you say, the most important one is I'd like to believe I'm a man who has managed to touch lives in my journey here on earth. I think I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an uncle to many. You left that one out.
Oh, yes. Malume.
Hey, Uncle L. I think, that's become my nickname because I've just sort of become the uncle of the nation, so to speak. And those are all things that have given me purpose in life. Up until I turned 40. I literally have
40
no idea.
Class?
Oh, I'm 40. Bro, 40.
Oh, I thought
40s.
35,
40s
36,
history.
37.
40s history. I turned 50 this year.
Wow.
I'm turning 50.
You must share the
this year.
receipts.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think for me, I literally only found my purpose at 40. I became this guy that people come to with their issues, with their problems. And for a while, I took it as a burden. I felt overwhelmed by it. But the moment I embraced it, it then redefined the direction of my life into the person that I am right now. So I'm very grateful for that. I think that's what sums me up. I'm a proud father, I'm a proud husband, but also I'm a proud uncle to the nation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you say, let's start maybe with being a proud husband. How long have you been married, Obiend?
My wife and I have been together for 10 years. Yeah, please. My wife and I have been together we've been together for 11 years, 10 and a half years, and we've been married for 10. So I knew.
10 and a half.
10 and a half
so
together.
Half a year.
Half a year.
And then you asked her to marry you.
And then I asked her to marry me.
How did you know? I think everyone keeps on saying,
I just
10 years.
Knew. You know what? By now, if ezokubuza after 10 years, chances are sekuyi marriage of surrender. It's like, we might as well just do this. There's even a song that says that. Meet me at the altar, we might as well do this.
Yes.
So annoying because You don't say that about marriage. Marriage should not be a might as
Let's
well
just do
kind
it.
of decision. You've got to really be looking at it and saying, listen, I cannot see the rest of my life without this person by my side.
3-5 things that convinced you that, or made you certain that, you know what, I'm going to ask Sweetheart, let's do this thing. 3-5 things was, I might be sitting here and be like, hey, I'm busy with Smakaleng, but what am I supposed to be looking for that will say, okay, yeah, so I'm busy with Smakaleng? Because it might happen that some of those things, I've seen them, but I'm not cognizant of them. But actually, these are the tick boxes, as we like to call them. Sure.
You know, it was a few things, and it went almost in steps. The first one, you know, when you're with your friends and you keep mentioning that person's name, such that by the time they all know her name.
Yeah.
Ukanye this, Ukanye that. You know, it's like, you know, Kanye always says, you know, Kanye did this just yesterday, blah, blah, blah. That was number one for me. And this friend of mine, she was actually best man, best lady at my wedding. she immediately said, bruh, you've got it bad. What's going on there? What's the story with this Kanye? And for me, that was a light bulb moment, number one. But a big one, the second one for me was when I just couldn't wait to go be with her. Doesn't matter where I am, doesn't matter what kind of fun I'm having with my friends, with, you know, whatever. I couldn't say it, but I just want to go home and be with her. That was a big one for me. Third one, she and I are able to talk about anything. So as such, I really look forward to going home. You know, I really look forward to being at home with her. I don't have filters. I am the same guy. You know how sometimes as a guy, you have, there's ubongani with his friends and there's ubongani with his lady.
Yes.
There's a certain filter that you need to apply. You can't talk about exes. You can't talk about things you used to do 5-10 years ago before you met her type of thing. There was none of that. Home was just a nice, comfortable place, man. I could get there and tell her about my day. I could tell her about the hot lady that I saw in the street. I could talk about whatever.
The one you saw at the street, come and tell her.
I could tell her. I'll be like, yo, hey, and
it doesn't come back to you.
Hey, you sis, you look like a Teletubby. She was so gorgeous. You know, whatever. It doesn't matter. The conversations were that easy. And for me, that made such a big difference. We can talk about our days. We can talk about our past. We can talk about what you're going through, whatever. Anything and everything. Nothing is off limits. And there's another thing we often say to one another, which beyond just love. I actually like her. Like, she's a cool person.
Okay, what's the difference between
there's a big difference.
Loving her and liking her?
There's a massive difference. See, love is an emotional thing. And I'm sure you've seen this, where people are in, for example, an abusive relationship, but she goes, but I love him. Do you know what I mean? Because the love is the emotional part of it. So regardless of how you actually interact and how you get along and whatever, those two things can be very, very separate. But when you like someone, then you enjoy their company. You play around like siblings. And even when you fight, you're able to still remember that I love you. There's actually a phrase that we like using, which is fight lovingly. You know, it sounds like such a paradox, but that's what it is. You in the middle of this fight, you've got to remember that tomorrow I need to go back to loving you. So there's things that people often say during fights that they're unable to take back once the fight is over. And as such, you've got to be intentional even when you fight to say, I mustn't take it to the point.
How do I stop bombs from flying?
That's the thing. You're not at war. You're not at war. You disagree. You have differing opinions on something, But it doesn't mean you're trying to kill the person. It doesn't mean you're trying to throw a bomb at this person. Because here's what happens, Nick. Whenever someone hurts you, you want to retaliate by making them feel the same hurt they've just made you feel. And that's not addressing the issue. It's just retaliation, which ultimately proves or solves nothing. What you want is to be able to actually resolve it so that and you're able to then continue with life. Always think, always begin a fight with the end in mind.
Doesn't that sound like motivational? Like, or I'm being questioned about something. Maybe then I must think about the end.
Yes. Think about, and when I say
the end, the hug and the kiss, or
when I say the end, I'm saying you must think about what it is that you're trying to achieve with this fight.
Get you.
What am I trying to achieve? And look, it takes a certain emotional maturity. It takes to be able to do that. To sit there and say, okay, fine, sharp. I understand. Right now I'm angry. But mangi address anai right now, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to get out of this conversation with her? It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It changes you into a very different person along the way, because I was also, when I met her, I was also the kind of person that's able to get mad at you and not talk to you for 3 days or 5 days. I can't do that anymore.
Because and you had to, did you have to unlearn?
Gotta unlearn. There's so much to unlearn. And it has shaped me into the person that I am. It has shaped me into the person that's able to then also counsel other couples on this, talk them through their disagreements and all of that. Be intentional about your disagreement to say, okay, fine, where do I want this to end?
Yende, let's go back.
Sure.
I always, you talk about an individual who, when you are with your friends, you are this bongane.
Sure.
And when you come to your partner, you're this different person. And not because of probably you want to. How, there are guys that would say, actually when we were still courting or still trying to share her or knowing her, we could talk about things. I would say, Nkapu ulinda wintombi yakhe, and she would ask how ulinda akasena ntombi ese north njengoba eseniye south,
Yeah.
But now when you are in a relationship, there are certain things that you can no longer say, because of. So what usually changes, what creates that environment where things that we used to talk about when we were courting, if I can use that word, are no longer palatable when we are now dating or in a serious relationship?
Who makes that decision, though?
I think it's unspoken, but people transit into that place. Like it just goes like,
Uncut it. And let me tell you why. Because it is actually bad for your relationship.
Yeah.
Because when they're holding back something, you can tell. When you get to the point where you have to start lying about the littlest of things because you're afraid of the impact that it's going to have, you already have a problem. If things were comfortable in the early days, you were able to talk about this and be okay with it, you should be able to carry that over. And this speaks to both of you in the relationship. Because yes, you're right. Sometimes there's the woman who will say, hey, you can't tell me that. If I can't, then who should I be telling? Would you rather I lie to you? Once again, that takes a certain level of emotional maturity to say, you know what, hey, EQ, it's a difficult thing to build. But you've got to know and understand your person is who he is. And he's not always swayed by what his friends are doing. Because that's always the fear. The moment you are able to say, oh, or effectively that means now
yes. That nonsense, what birds of the same feather
Birds of a
flock
feather,
together. I think somebody wrote it on Facebook and said, can people stop bringing, if you are going to be bringing different girlfriends to a space with my woman, please don't come. And I replied, I said, where do we fit into the problems of your relationship? Because also I think it is a reflection of the problems that you guys are having.
Sure.
And now you want to make other people an issue of your issues.
Yeah.
Because I was saying, if you are married, Babi, and you know. And if I have a partner, actually, your wife, when she sees me, she sees a bachelor. So tomorrow I'm gonna come with Palisa to a family gathering yako. Tomorrow I'm gonna have a bride at my place. Palisa could no longer be there, and there is a matlakala, you know.
Sure.
There must be an appreciation of where is this person.
Yeah.
You know,
at what point is he
at what point are they in? So I was saying to that person, I think you guys are giving reflections of your own relationships into other people.
They project. Look, I agree with you, but I see where they're coming from too, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. If you're going to bring umatlakala to my house,
are there people still giving those names? Matlakala, such an old name.
I don't know.
And trees. Okay, so yeah, we're not there. We're not there.
You know, I'm trying to think. I don't think. Yeah, Tlaki. Yes. I've met some matlakalas.
Okay.
Bako no Tlaki. They've just learned to make it nicer.
Tlaki. Okay, sure. Sorry.
Sorry, Tlaki.
Yeah.
If you're going to bring Utlaki to my house, and she gets welcomed into the house, and you know she's introduced to my wife as Intombi Kabongani, and my wife then builds a certain bond of sorts with her. It does get uncomfortable if a week later you are there nothembi. But here's the thing. This is what you must understand. And by bond, sometimes all I mean is just a rapport. Just
Sure.
you know, and we're looking at this Tlaki and we say, you know, she'd be nice for Bongani. Like she'll actually, you know, be a positive influence in his life and blah blah blah. So it's understandable if she then has a problem with Utembi next week and Untombi week after that. And that's why sometimes we actually often say that it's better for married people to be hanging out with married people in many ways, because then there aren't any of those dynamics.
I could be learning from you guys.
This is true.
I could be learning from you guys.
And we don't want to take those lessons away from you, but it starts with a simple thing that, hey, respect my house.
Yeah.
At the very least.
Sure.
You know?
Of course, boundaries are quite important. Boundaries are quite important. And also the level of interaction. Because of another thing, for instance, I've got friends that are a little bit older than me.
Sure.
And when you guys start planning things like trips, you know, one friend of mine said, hey, Chief, can we do a trip, 5 trips? I was like, what? He says, a trip with the kids, okay, I qualify, tick. Trip with the parents, okay, I qualify, tick. He says, the trip with the wives, and I was like, wives, who wives? And yeah, then I must take a trip with the wife and then come back then so that we can have a trip with the boys.
Okay.
You know? So you want to be there, but now when people then start saying no, get trip made. So what happens to me as Bongani? So I don't come through.
There's the problem. And the interesting thing about that is the reason why we have those is so that when I say Nhamba no Bongani on the boys' trip in a week's time, in a month's time, whatever the case might be, she now knows the kind of person I'm going with. She's then a lot more comfortable with the idea. Oh no, every Thursday is boys' night, and I get that. I understand it. Well, every second Thursday, whatever the case might be, she does need to have a certain level of comfort in the person that I am with. So I think those couple outings are actually important. They have their space. They are important. There must just not be those weeks away, man. And then people be wearing in Patler's mesha, you're looking like looking like an adult play date. They're looking like an adult play date. Song is Look, no offense to whoever does that, man, but phew, could never be me.
So now his and hers.
No. I don't have a problem with his and hers.
No,
I
so
do
what
have-
is your
no,
uncle
it's gone.
and-
It's gone.
no, yeah.
It's gone. But I
Comfortably.
do have a problem.
Comfortably.
Of course, yeah. In fact, I'll tell you what's funny about that. I'm more for Intes Meshayo because I just want us to look like Spumendline one, not like Slangane at the door of the venue where we're going. Like we're just two random people. Pink, no, there's got to be some kind of coordination. Nyana. Even if my socks match your dress or something, you know.
Or the belt, okay.
Or
I'm not disagreeing. Yeah, couples must do couple goals.
I mean, it's not even couple goals. It's just
Yeah, I'm saying the social
together,
media
man.
term couple goals.
Sure.
But I think you've got people that have been reaching out to you, Uncle L, and they say, "Nazi inkinga zethu."
Sure.
What have you picked up as a challenge in this day and age for relationships? I was saying to you earlier on that I was reading, just the States General was releasing some report, and part of that report was on marriage and divorce.
Sure.
And the report was saying, imishado inciphile,
On the decline, yeah.
and divorces have been going up, and one also even thought, no, but maybe COVID was having some type of a contribution, but then they were able to eloquently say 5 years back and so on. So I'm saying, taking that and also some of the people who are reaching out to you, when you sit and assess and analyze all of this, where do you think things are going wrong? But also, what is going right for those that have been able to, because I don't want us to only look at the negative, but also I think there are good stories out there.
Sure.
You've been in a relationship for 10 years and a half. I know people have been married for 20 years, 30 years. There are people who've been dating for 8 years.
Of course.
But what are the things that make these relationships not to work? And those that are working, what do you think makes them to work?
I'm glad you mentioned the issue of the ones that do work, because ziningi. You never hear about a plane that didn't crash.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make news. They're not going to be putting it on the front page of the Star. The plane took off and landed successfully in Durban, because that's normal. What you do hear about is when a plane has an accident and it crashes, or whatever the case might be. So what I'm saying is there are probably, in fact, there are so many others that are actually going well. Everything is going great. That just don't get talked about a lot. Now, what's going wrong? There's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen in our society. There's a lot of things that we grew up with, we grew to understand marriage to be, that have had to change, that have changed over the years. Women are becoming a lot more independent. They're making their paper. You know what I mean? 30 years ago, a guy could go guamla. What I say goes. I'm providing, I'm doing ABC. And as such, 30 years ago, a lot of women could stick around in marriages that they're unhappy with, simply because the man is providing for her. That has become less and less prevalent, because if you have your own money and you're able to look after yourself, and then you discover that this guy is just not the right fit, he's not, things are not quite working out for you. The decision to leave is a lot easier now than it was then. And this is not me encouraging people to leave, but it's saying you've got to stay out of choice. Be in a relationship, be in a marriage because you want to, not because of your socioeconomic needs. Similarly, marriage as a construct actually started for financial and socioeconomic reasons. It may have been slightly different. It was from a hunter-gatherer type of arrangement, but that's where marriage initially comes from. It was, you'll provide, you'll nurture, whatever the case might be, all of those things. If you are suddenly able to do all of that for yourself, more and more women will go, well, then why get married? I'm providing for myself, I'm good. 30 years ago, a mother would say to her daughter, who's still in bed at 10 in the morning, "Umfazi onjani usalele ngo-10 umshado ubani? Who is going to marry this lazy girl?" And that plants a seed in her head to say, you know what? It means it doesn't matter how successful I become in life, it doesn't matter what I manage to achieve, until I find somebody who finds me marriage worthy, I'm still lacking, I'm still failing in some way.
Not good enough.
And more, as the times are changing, the ladies are challenging that, and they're going, why get married if I'm able to actually look after myself? Everything is cool in my life. I've got the house, I've got the car, I can even go get the kid without this guy, without a guy. So those stats are influenced by all of that. And a part of this, a big part of this, is the fact that 21st century men still don't quite know what that means to be a 21st century man alongside a 21st century woman. Because there's a lot that's being done to uplift women, to change women's lives, and men are failing to keep up with the new 21st century woman. They're struggling with it. We don't know what leading in the family doesn't mean just because you're bringing in more money. Because then that means, by implication, it means if your wife happens to then be given a CEO position, you have now lost your leadership position.
Look, I still grapple with this thing of who brings the fattest envelope to the house.
Yeah.
And I know when I grew up, where Auntie was a nurse,
sure,
and Umalume was working at a steel company,
sure,
and his wages were far less than my aunt's salary,
sure,
and there's a couple of others, a grandfather who's a priest, and my grandmother was a school principal, started as a teacher,
sure,
and looking at the scale of a priest, in your old traditional churches, Methodist and Presbyterian churches, they're not earning like the ones who drive convoys these days,
Sure.
So I don't know, at times when people want to bring this conversation of resources that are coming into the house and who's bringing them, I tend to struggle because of when I look back, I still find women who were having much more recognized jobs and bringing more money to the house. And ubaba, even though whether also there was that element of surrendering your entire envelope. My dad did that.
Sure.
Even today, no kumbuzumangit. And men surrendered those, irrespective of how little. So I still don't understand how the power dynamics on the monetary level affects, Sure. Was it a question of me, do I see myself less of a man without being told? Or what puts us there? Because I really don't think.
I think, firstly, you and I are a generation apart. There's a whole almost 15 years between us. And you are part of the generation that started witnessing the change. What you are describing now was far less prevalent in my day. And I know I sound really old. I sound really old when I say that, but it was far less prevalent in my day. It happened. Nobody's saying it never happened. But it's something that started becoming a norm 15, 20 years ago, maybe even, let's call it 30. But for change to be a norm takes a lot longer than that. So I guess what I'm saying is that change started happening then and is becoming more and more as bigger and better positions are becoming available for everyone, but certainly for women. Now they're CEOs, you know, and that's a norm. Nobody's surprised at the existence of a female CEO. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you could probably count the amount of female CEOs that exist, whatever. I don't have the stats, but what I'm saying is I think everybody knows that it's become more and more prevalent as women are being, you know, recognized for their merit apart from their gender. So it's become a bigger and bigger thing. The people you describe are probably the reason why you fail to see this, because that became your normal. That became something that you don't even question or get surprised at. A lot of people, probably even back then, were still surprised by it when they saw it happening. You know, the woman has more money or whatever. In fact, I'll tell you what's interesting about what you're saying. There's many families where the father would drive the better car, for example. The mother would drive the better car than the husband. And everyone would be like, hey, this man has been whipped. Because the assumption was he went and bought her a better car than what he drives. Nobody would ever think it's because she's making more money than him. It's just how society was wired back then. We all just had that immediate assumption that he's the one making more money, especially since a lot of people were actually secretive about how they make their money. It's I don't know what it is.
We're more secretive now.
You think?
Yes, because an envelope.
No. I'm not talking internally. I'm talking just from the outside. You can't. You know that phrase on the Will Smith movie Pursuit to Happiness? What do you do and how can I do it? You know, he walks up to the guy who drives a Ferrari and asks him that question. And I thought to myself, you can't do that in South Africa. You can't do that in South Africa because people are so secretive about what they do, what their sources of income are, because it was on Bizela Mahawks type of thing.
I was about social media, what do you do? And I don't understand, even guys, like, what's the secret in this thing? But no, it's because of you're going to conclude on how to engage with me.
I don't
guys,
know.
I just want to know what you're doing. It doesn't change the price of bread.
It does actually change the price of bread, but for a good reason. Because if I know, Uguti, you are Bongani Luvalo and you're an author and you're a speaker, etc. Next time I'm looking for an author or speaker, I don't have to go. I know a guy. I met him 2 weeks ago. Bongani Luvalo, come, let's do it. Do you know what I'm saying? So people often bemoan the fact that we don't give each other business as Abantu. But it's because we will hang out for a week, a month. We'll have a friend who's been your friend for 10 years. And you actually don't know what he does. You're like, I don't know, he does something in plastics or something. And that's it. You know what I mean? And as such, we then battle, or we end up not giving each other opportunities when they come up, because it just never comes up. It's not a conversation because asfuni uklaso or whatever that thing is. I think that's very silly. There really is so much more that we could be doing with one another if we knew what the person does.
Uncle L, everyone talks about communication being the center of relationships. From the men's perspective, how do I and empower myself and fix myself to be a communicator? What are the things that I need to gear myself up as I'm building a relationship? Like, when we say communication, what is meant by communication, especially from the side of Amachita? I think by a clock, but a friend, where are you? I'm coming to your place. I'm bringing wine. Do you have chocolate? And they drink and eat chocolate and they cry. You know, like how do we open ourselves to this thing of communication?
Okay, so there's two conversations here. there's the communication ascending. A lot of people feel as if a lot of communication actually revolves around, it's almost an oppression of sorts. To be able to say, you know what, I got to the office safely. I was on my way to the office and then Ubongani called me, so I'm not going to the office anymore. I'm going to go pop in and see Ubongani. It sounds like you're reporting.
Yes.
It feels like you're reporting.
Yes.
When in reality, you're communicating. Because, lo and behold, as I'm turning in on Greyston Drive, a friend of hers sees me and says, oh, I just saw your hubby. Let's talk later. And she goes, hey, boy, how's this office in? As far as I know, he was on his way to the office. You know how odd that feels for her? Now she's sitting there thinking, why would he choose to hide this from me? Not understanding that somewhere along the way, my plans got changed because I got a call from Bongan. That's communication. That's all it is. And the same can be said for a simple thing like, all right, I'm leaving the office now. And then something comes up, or there's an accident on the road. I will share a screenshot. Hey, bro, look, there's crazy traffic on the highway. I think there's an accident. It's just sharing.
But Yende, while you're talking about this thing of communicating,
sure.
I don't know, is it amajita a jita thing that why must I be reporting my movement? Why does she want to know my movement?
Yeah.
How do I teach myself? You know, actually, besides even just relationships, you know, my mother at times she would ask me, where on earth are you? Because of you just move without saying. So is it something that we need to, how do I teach myself that it's you're not accounting, you are informing your partner, and it's not that, how do we put it?
Yeah.
And this notion, it
feels like you're reporting. It feels like
how do we kill that mentality?
You know what's interesting? I've heard the same thing from ladies too, on their own, Jay. It's an interesting thing. But yes, it's more prevalent in Machiteni.
Yeah.
And the reason behind it, I think the thought process behind it is, like you say, I don't want to feel like I'm being controlled. But the reality is, being in a relationship and certainly being in a marriage involves or includes accountability. It includes the knowledge and the constant remembering that I am now not alone in this life thing. Start with knowing that you're doing this just to put her mind at ease. And when I say put your mind at ease, I'm not even talking about what for her to not worry what we are jawla or anything like that, because that's what most people think.
Yes.
The truth is, you get in your car, and how many people have gotten into their car and not made it to their destination?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So umuntu hlezi ubamba inhliziyo ngesandla because she's worried, because anything can happen to you between when you leave home to when you get to where you're going. So your first point of accountability is just to put her mind at ease that I traveled safely. Once you get that into your mind and you create that mindset to say, you know what, I've now told her she can relax. I am now at the office, or I am where I said I was going. You have just started to create a habit, and it's a good one, because she never feels like you have anything to hide, which then becomes the second point. First point, your safety. But secondly, just I have nothing to hide. I'm not, I'm gonna be where I said I'm gonna be. I'm doing what I said I'm doing. Trust is built on such things. She feels a lot more comfortable knowing, okay, No, cool. I know where he's at. I know what he's doing. All good. And let's understand that these are not the be all and end all of building trust. Or in some people's case, rebuilding trust after you've broken it.
Yes.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Because there's that.
Because also after you've done the wrongs, you must now put the hard work in rebuilding the trust.
Rebuilding the trust.
Yeah.
Rebuilding the trust. It's such a big one, that, because people just assume that, you know, if I've come back and I've apologized and I've, you know, whatever, then that's it. We should be cool. We should be okay. But the truth is, so many of the things that you used to do back then, or when you were busy doing what you're doing, were things that you did when you said you were doing something else. You leave the house and you say, I'm going with the boys. You leave the house and you say you've got to work a team building. Meanwhile, you're Joel. You then get caught. But you expect, Uguti, after you've been forgiven, after you've apologized, you can then just go on doing things.
Forgotten.
Yeah,
Done.
without. And often, I like going into, you know, whenever couples come to me and the guy comes and he's complaining, yo, mina, angtenjo landlini. Yo, I'm always being asked, what am I doing, whatever. I said, okay, fine, let's take it. Have you ever broken her trust? Have you ever given her reason to distrust you? Yeah, but it was a whole 5 years ago. Fair enough. But have you rebuilt the trust in those 5 years? Have you worked towards her feeling comfortable that you are doing what you say you're doing and not something else? It's a journey. And sometimes it's something you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. Because you have broken trust. Trust is such a hard thing to earn, but it's 10 times, 100 times harder to re-earn it. It's just, you can't expect it to just happen. Sometimes it will never happen. Sometimes you will never fully regain someone's trust if you've ever broken it.
Do we as guys understand the question of accountability? You know, as you are saying that at times you don't want somebody to be, you feel like your partner is tracking your movement, or wants to know more than what they're supposed to know. Do we understand? I think earlier on you spoke about having to realize and understand what a relationship is in a 21st century, including the question of how resourced women are and so on. But do we understand as men what it is being in a relationship, and that it comes with the element of being accountable to the relationship and to your partner?
Sure. We battle with that. We seriously battle with that, and as a result, we end up wanting to be the same person you were when you were single. You now expect to be that person when you have a wife. And I think a big reason for this desire is you sit there and you say, this person found me like this, and I don't see why she should be changing me. What we don't understand is whether you like it or not, you have now become one. Two have become one. And as such, even though the Bible says the left hand must know what the right hand is doing, but in this instance, in the relationship setup, you actually do need to know. You need to know. And you know, we are spoiled. We're spoiled because more often than not, you marry a woman and she'll spend a greater part of her time at home. Yes, she'll go out, she'll do whatever, but more often than not, she's more at home than you are. So more often than not, you know exactly where your wife is at any given time. 9 times out of 10. And if not, then she will actually tell you, because she'll Say, I'm out shopping, I'm doing whatever. So we're spoiled because we've taken that as a norm in our lives. We've just, this is just how life is. And as such, we don't then feel the need and the desire to reciprocate because we just think it's our God-given right. We don't understand. Try and put yourself in the position. I gave the scenario earlier of you getting a call right now. Your wife left home and said she's on her way to the office. And then a friend calls and says, oh, I just saw your lady right now on Greyston, and her office is the other way, the other direction. Do you know how enraged that would make you and how suspicious that would make you? Because it would be out of character for her. The her that you're used to is the her that would tell you, which I've decided against going to the office, or I got a call on my way to the office and I need to go do ABC. She will tell you. And she'll be telling you as sharing, not as reporting. We fail to put ourselves in that scene, in that scenario, whenever we do things. And therein lies the problem. We lack empathy. We lack empathy on so many levels. I'm sure you've heard this one 100 times, that guys are less likely to forgive cheating. They're far less likely. They will walk away. And look, make no mistake, there are guys who will stay. There are guys, we just don't hear about them.
Yeah.
Because they don't go and talk to dear Uncle Al and say, hey, I got cheated on, bruh. They don't.
Yeah.
They do not. But women tend to do so more. But it is true that guys are more likely to walk away in that scenario. It's because we lack empathy. You can get caught cheating 10 times as a guy. You catch her once and you're out of there. That's a big double standard, isn't it?
But also in the question of empathy, do we know how to say, I'm sorry?
No, we buy flowers or we buy gifts or whatever the case might be.
Is that I'm sorry?
And you know, it's not. Okay. It's definitely not. It really isn't. Look, there's levels to this. So let's start with, if you do it the first time and you get away with it, and by it, I mean...
I wanted to ask you a question. Then it goes wrong. When you say get away with it, you're not caught, or you
No.
You say I'm sorry, and
you get away with you say sorry.
Or you pass your credit card and...
Yeah, you say I'm sorry. You don't say I'm sorry. You just go buy her something nice, or you give her the credit card, or you whatever. That then becomes your modus operandi going forward. That's how I say sorry, clearly. I just give her my credit card, or I send
sorry.
No, it's cool. I send her a big, massive bunch of flowers, and we put it on Instagram, and all the friends are going, ooh, love lives here. And then it's brushed under the carpet. It's gone.
I'm tempted to, you know, when the pot finishes, it clearly means we're going towards the end of our conversation.
You got me drinking tea, man.
Yeah,
I'm not even a tea guy, but here I am, and I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it.
I hope we had scones or muffins, because it's very unpeculiar for men to be sitting and drinking tea and having scones.
Well, you know what? I have a feeling I will be back.
Not
this
definitely.
Conversation I paid.
Because of the question of I'm sorry, I think it's a standalone conversation.
True.
Both for men and for women. Because as you're talking about the flowers being delivered at work and she becomes happy. Because there are men who say, man, when I apologize, I just give you my credit card. And, you know,
yeah. Yes. Yes.
Uxolisa ngani? Ngiyakuthi I'm sorry. Uxolisa ngani?
Cold drink.
You know? So that's why I'm asking, Ngudi, as men, do we know the true meaning of I'm sorry and what it entails in the body of I'm sorry? But also, do women know what it stands for when it's said to them?
I'm glad you brought that up for a different reason.
Yeah.
Because there's also the empty I'm sorry. Simply because you're so not used to saying the words, you think when you just say I'm sorry, then that absolves you immediately. And it kind of takes us full circle back to the thing we were talking about now, about the re-earning of trust and all of that. The fact that, we assume that just because I have said I'm sorry, which is so out of character for me, I never apologize. So you must just be grateful that I apologized. It took a lot for me. Yeah. And that's just then in that case, all it is an empty gesture. It's just an empty word. It's just something to say to shut you up so that we can get past this. So that's also problematic all on its own. The words must be coupled with the action. It must be coupled with, very importantly, I've seen a lot of parents do this with their kids, where the child says, I'm sorry, and you say, okay, you're sorry for what? And the reason for this is so we can be crystal clear about what it is that you're apologizing for, so that you know not to do it again. You don't just say, I'm sorry, but you've got to actually break it down and say, look, I'm sorry I did ABC. I'm sorry I made you feel ABC. I'm sorry I did this and did this and did this. And this applies to both genders, guys. This is equally important. Yes. There's a phrase I like giving to couples. And it's part of the whole fighting lovingly thing that I spoke about earlier. The fact that when you have a problem with somebody or with something that your partner has done, don't attack the person, attack the behavior. And you do this by saying, when you A, I feel B. It's part of that being intentional about how you fight. When you A, you make me feel B. When you A, I feel B. That way, when the other party apologizes, they will then say, I'm sorry I did ABC. I'm sorry I made you feel ABC. They're never in a place where they have to try and guess or try and figure out, what they've done wrong or how they've made you feel, because you've made it crystal clear. Don't do this whole, ladies, please stop. Ladies have this insane habit of, you know what you did. No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Thanks, Uncle L. Yeah, now we must start figuring out.
You gotta start, listen. It could be that I left the toilet seat up.
Yep.
It could be that you found a bra in your car. Like, do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things in between those two extremes.
Yes.
Now you have to try and figure out. And I mean, I'm being facetious with both examples, but you get my point.
Or I spent 500 rands that I was not supposed to spend.
That I wasn't supposed to spend. Or I was late. Or it's our anniversary and I forgot. Or it's this. Or it's that. It could be 100 different things that could have slipped your mind, that you could have done without intending to, that whatever. You've got to, communication also includes you sharing what it is that's bothering you. Don't just sit there and expect it. The vast majority of unmet expectations are as a result of uncommunicated expectations. Say
uncommunicated expectations.
Yeah. Say what's on your mind. Say what's troubling you. Say what it is that you're looking for, and we'll get through this a lot quicker.
Uncle L, as we wrap up our tea session,
sure.
Or people must not forget, what again, subscribe, like, or dislike, kind of a thing.
Hey, like, there's no option but dislike.
I think relationships go through honeymoon phase, what they call honeymoon phase. So when people are at 10 years, 20 years, either of a relationship or marriage, how do you keep the romance in the relationship? And as a man, how do I then lead this romance?
Sure.
And also, is it only a man's responsibility to keep the lights burning?
Okay. All right. So let's start with when you first meet, the reason why it's called falling in love is because it's largely unintentional. Mm-hmm. You don't get up, walk across the room and intend to fall. Mm-hmm. It's something that happens to you. It's circumstantial. And it's similar when it comes to love. You don't leave your house hoping to bump into this person who will then somehow become the most important person in your life, or, all of a sudden. That's why it's called falling. There's no intent to it. But that doesn't last. That honeymoon period that they speak about is part of the falling in love process. But beyond that, you then have to start being intentional about loving. Mm-hmm. You have made a choice, you have made a decision to love this person. And as such, every morning, you've got to have a conversation with yourself to say, I choose you again. I choose to love you again. And you almost have to renew that into your psyche on a daily basis. Even on days when you're not happy with the person.
Yeah.
Even on days when you don't like the person because of what they've done.
Sure.
You continue to love them. Kind of takes us full circle back to the liking and the love. I don't like you right now, but I still love you.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with what you've done. I'm not happy with how you've made me feel, but I still love you. Mm-hmm. You are intentional about it daily. Now, as part of that package, there's also there's a phrase that I love saying, which is what you did to make a person fall in love with you, you've got to keep doing
it
to keep them in love with you. And much to your question, it goes both ways. Whatever it is that was happening in the early days of your relationship that made the person say, oh my gosh, this is the one. You've got to keep on doing. You've got to be intentional about those things. You've got to, and it's not always a big gesture thing. Sometimes it's a little thing. It's the sandwich that you make for your person that they like. I'm a door opener, for example.
Yay!
No, I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. So much so that even when we're fighting, with an angry mouth, I'll go and open the damn door. I'll open the door for her and I'll probably slam it. But
sure.
It's because you want to remember that. Want to remember to be consistent. I've heard a lot of people, even as they see me do it, I've heard a lot of them go, either the car's new or the wife is new when they see you do that.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's new relationship behavior. It's a thing people do to impress their
thank goodness
person.
I don't do it in your relationships.
Yeah, well then, keep on doing you, man. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do it when the relationship is matured.
Okay, all right. That's interesting. But you get what I'm saying.
Definitely.
At the end of the day, a lot of people are doing that as part of their PR
Yes.
at the beginning of the relationship to get the person into their lives. And then it falls by the wayside as the relationship matures. And that's problematic because what it's saying is, ngingathi ngisakuthanda ngangiyenza lento manje
Ngisakuthanda, ngijwayele.
you know, it's an unspoken
You're like furniture in this
message.
house.
Yeah, you just, you're like a pair of shoes. You know how you love your pair of shoes when you first buy it, and then missy laugh for, you've worn it for a year. It's like, yeah, I want a new one, type of thing. So you've got to be aware of those things that you did back then. You used to take her out on dates.
Is romance expensive?
Oh yeah. Look, romance is expensive, but the currency isn't always money.
Zwil, romance is expensive. I wonder if they see life in the tweet. Romance is expensive, but it's not about the currency.
The currency isn't always money. Time is money. Time is very much money. Time is of equal importance. Attention is of equal importance. For you to just be intentional about pleasing your partner, it takes a certain percentage of your time, of your brain, of your whatever. The thought to say, you know what, I'm going to make a detour and drive into the filling station quick shop to buy her a chocolate for when I get home. Chocolate isn't expensive, it's $15. But knowing that it's going to put a huge smile on her face when you get there. And I mean, don't do it every day, guys. You don't participate diabetes. But it's a beautiful gesture to just remember that. To say, you know what? I was on my way home and I thought of you. That's expensive.
Yeah.
That's expensive. There's 7 billion people on the face of the earth. You thought of her. Because you chose her. She chose you to be the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. There's got to be a distinction. Often that you think about her. Ladies, same.
You know, team, because the more you speak, I then have, it's like an onion is being peeled, and I think probably we'll have to definitely get another second conversation and a third conversation.
I'd love that.
I would sit in a restaurant, there's a coffee shop, not even a restaurant, I would sit in a coffee shop with this thing of load shedding. I get there with my laptop, I know they've got power there.
Sure.
It's a small coffee shop. So I would look at couples' behavior. So it's a Greek, it's a Portuguese coffee shop.
Sure.
You know, but not only there, even at Wimpy, you get there, you get a couple that walks in, they order coffee, the other one orders coffee, the other one orders a soda, you know, and they get a cake and they share it, you know.
Yeah.
And over time, I would see this behavior of people get into a shop or restaurant and they just have a small meal, and for an hour there's no phone, it's just them. You know, and probably maybe in our next conversation we should talk about our dates. Do they have to be expensive?
No.
You know, because of also for me I think that's romantic.
It's beautiful.
Having to take 1 hour, 30 minutes, sorry, of your time and say, let's just talk, just the two of us,
just us.
You know, because at times I don't know, maybe we overthink it as a machita that. If I say I must be romantic to Umuntu and take her out, I must be having some couple of thousands.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe it's the social culture or we overthink it. And if women, I think women would appreciate just us sharing a slice of cake. Or even a quarter, you know?
Yeah.
But I think those are gestures of romance, as you put it, you know? And I think we might have to dive deep into these gestures,
sure.
You know, and also even our patterns as men. Do we associate love with high spending and bowling and so on? because of probably those are some of the threats of these relationships, you know. But let me allow you, Uncle L, as the famous Uncle L would conclude it. If you could give us your parting shot as far as our conversation about the 21st century.
I think I would say more than anything, we need to be redefining constantly. We need to constantly be redefining who we are, how we see ourselves. Who I am today is not the same person I was yesterday. I am richer from having had this conversation with you. And we've got to stop this thing of saying, well, this is how I've always done things. This is who I've always been. Because how's that working out for you? You know, let's be willing to learn. Let's be willing to grow. Read a book. talk to somebody who will leave you a better version of yourself. Nobody's trying to change you from your essence, but we just want to be better versions of ourselves constantly. If we all become intentional about that, even if it's just from exposure, from having spoken to somebody who makes you a better version of yourself. I often say this, that one of the things I love about social media, people talk about how toxic social media is. Social media is amazing. And I'll tell you why it's amazing, because you choose the content that you consume. You curate it. So if you're going to go and your focus is on the gossip or the people who are fighting, or the people who are doing this and doing that, people who are exposing scandals and whatnot, then you'll get more of that on your feed. But if you go and say, you know what, I like motivation, I like to be motivated, and you start focusing on that, you'll get more of that. If you go and look at people that you look up to, people who have achieved what you want to achieve, people who have gotten to the level where you want to get to, you don't even have to go wait until you buy their autobiography or whatever. It's out there on a daily basis. You can go open social media and you'll find content from people that you look up to, and as a result, you'll get a slice of their wisdom on a daily basis.
Sure.
Takes you to be intentional about that. We have to be more intentional about growing as human beings, as an individual. That's all I have to say about that.
Uncle Yende, Uncle L, as your people love calling you. Because uncles have got wisdom. It's just that Omalum Sebaba is, but when they say uncle, it was one of the most integral part of what a family fiber is.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that you have given us the opportunity to tap into your wisdom, to take your time and engage on relationship in the 21st century.
Sure.
People are complaining about umjolo, loku.
Yeah.
But also I think there are those who've got beautiful stories to tell about relationships.
So true.
And I think once we all realize that we can't do this life thing alone, we need each other, probably our attitude to life and to relationships would become different,
Yeah.
And I think it's quite exciting for us to, having shared our early days with, men of your stature, people who take the well-being of society so serious, but most importantly, who takes care of his own first.
Sure.
And I think this is the platform where we're trying to bring men, but also women as well. But I think the first attempt is to say, as men, let's try and unlearn some of the things we have learned, but also you have an opportunity of having people you can make a point of reference and learn from them. Because of in our communities and the types of communities we have built these days no longer allows you to go next door and actually get into a conversation there. You know, we all have our own spaces that we want to protect, we want to be, and once we isolate ourselves, we become minimal to having to receive wisdom. And we think that with Men 360, it becomes that opportunity that as guys, as men, we'll be able to draw from some of the lessons and the topics that we'll be conversing on. And of course, from great men like yourself, you know. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you for joining us. Please ensure that you subscribe. I think there's subscribe, there's like and dislike. Only do the like one and share with friends and family to follow us, but also most importantly to come and enjoy the conversations that we are creating here. And of course, most importantly, our book, an award-winning book, not just a book, but Yende, this is an award-winning book for best parenting tool. In the 2020.
I love it.
So it's available at Exclusive Books, and also it's available on Take a Lot, it's available on Amazon, but also you can even inbox us on our social pages, Cool Dads Foundation, and we can get a copy to you. Thank you very much. Siyabonga kakhulu, and we are out.
Yes.